Well, it's that time again to see what's been happening at Spring Brook Farm. October is a month of transitions, so let's see how the farm's been changing. Up in the garden, most of October was actually quite sunny and warm, so lots of flowers were still blooming, and we eventually pulled everything after our frost come the end of October. So the garden is now considered put to bed and all ready for winter. In the warmer parts of October, we harvested our sunflowers and laid them out to dry, so the seeds could be used both for eating and for planting for next year's sunflowers. We harvested the Brussels sprouts, also for eating. And the peppers held on for a very long time. We finally harvested all the peppers. Some had turned red, some had turned yellow, and some were just still green. And lastly, we finally got a watermelon, which tasted like a watermelon. This is Deana and Diane pulling up all the flowers and vines that were killed by the frost in late October. As we said, October is a month of transition. One of the biggest transitions happens with the leaves at the farm and in all of the state. They go from being green to changing colors to falling off, as seen through these daily photos at Spring Brook Farm. This October, we said goodbye and thank you to our turkeys, and then cleaned out their coop, scrubbing it down so it can be storage for wheelbarrows and other items through the winter. With the shortening of days, the growing season also slows down. The grass stops growing as much. So we brought in some of our youngest heifers into the heifer barn so we could provide them food. And the cows were given some extra pastures, turning hay fields into pasture, so they had more grass to feed upon. So we had to do some more fence removing to provide that extra space for the cows. Our layer chicks are no longer chicks. They're now pullets and cockerels. And our 3 cockerels, which will soon be roosters, have started to crow and practice with their voices. Not so great, but they're learning. Cow yard got a nice facelift with some brand new hard pack, while the inside of the dairy barn got power washed again before winter really sets in. And we might be starting to get a little stir crazy. With the cow pastures being expanded and some of the heifers being moved in, the unused water tubs and food troughs and calf hutches were put away and cleaned for the winter. Haying season has also come to an end, so that equipment also gets power washed and cleaned and put away for the winter until it'll be used next spring. We had many heifer calves born this month. We had Zodiac, Narnia, Drewberry, Vigo, and Pumpkinberry. One of the biggest seasonal things that happens in October is our apples are ready for picking, eating, pie making, jelly making, cider making, and anything else apple. So we did a lot of picking. Even using an apple picker to get way up high to the highest apples in the tree. One of the new things we did with our apples this year is once we picked them and drove them down, we filled wooden crates full of our apples from the ground, from the trees, and those apples were taken to someone else who would make cider and apple jelly with them. But not only did we pick apples for the big wooden crates, we also picked a lot of apples for the farm itself. With the apples picked for the farm, we spent one full day making apple cider. So we washed the apples. We put the apples through the grinder. We put the ground apples into the press. We added the wooden blocks on top of the press. We smushed down the press and spun it in a circle with lots and lots of effort from everyone involved to get lots and lots of cider from our juicy apples. And then that cider we poured into the filter. And after a full day of pressing and grinding and washing, we had over 40 gallons of cider. We put those into Gatorade containers, and the staff was able to fill their own containers to take home to enjoy some fresh apple cider. Like with any project, there's always cleanup to do. So after every press, we removed all the wooden blocks, separated the press itself, then that apple cake we took apart and put into our tractor bucket, scraping it all clean until there was no more apple pieces left, and then we put the press back together to have yet another pressing. Well, that concludes the farm happenings for October. See you at the end of November.